All right, I'm back. A little long weekend hunting. Delta lost my gun and my luggage. It was great. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. And we begin tonight with some of the most hilarious breaking news I think I've probably ever reported on. Jasmine Crockett has now filed paperwork to run for the U.S. Senate, entering the Democrat primary for the seat held by Senator John Cornyn. I mean, come on, guys. This comes days after the Supreme Court signed off on a new congressional map that essentially deep sixes her seat. I mean, does this lady really think she's going to get elected statewide in Texas? Hard pass. Anyway, plus, interim U.S. Attorney for the state of New Jersey, Alina Habba, has resigned her seat after an appellate court found that Attorney General Pam Bondi had improperly appointed her. Okay, Habba will continue to work at the DOJ as a senior advisor and said in a statement, quote, "Do not mistake compliance for surrender. This decision will not weaken the Justice Department and will not weaken me." I love that girl. She's such a fighter. And Democrats are still slamming the Trump administration for strikes suspecting narco-terrorists as they continue their attempt to, bring drugs into the country and stuff. Just a real quick reminder, though, folks, the head Democrat in the Senate, Chuckie Schumer, he actually voted for this back in 1986 when I was 3. He voted yes on the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act, which authorized the U.S. military to fire on drug smuggling boats. Pot, kettle. Nice job, guy. But first, love it. Absolutely love it when a president that puts actual Americans in front of people that don't really contribute to this country. Let's do this. Ain't it nice to have a president that actually cares about Americans? Like God-fearing good old boys that produce food.
Farmers are an indispensable national asset, part of the backbone of America. We're once again in a position where a president is able to put farmers first, but unfortunately I'm the only president that does that.
I mean, taking care of the people who actually produce our food seems like something we probably need here. Now, this started under Biden, where farmers got absolutely crushed. Fuel prices, nitrogen-based fertilizer, a bunch of other stuff, glyphosate, all the things you need to produce food. This is $12 billion Trump is allocating to this is exactly what my tax dollars should be going to, because we won't eat if it doesn't. I was in Kansas deer hunting this weekend, spent a ton of time with beef and dairy farmers. Some of the ranches we were hunting on are massive, massive farms. And these guys are literally killing themselves, working like 18-hour days to feed us. The number one thing they told me is like, look, we support Trump. He's fantastic, but we need some help. And if some lib wants to scoff at this number, look, we gave Jordan, Egypt, and Ethiopia in the last 3 years the same amount of money, in large part to fund their agriculture. Why not do it for our own? This is like a huge flip from America last under Biden. And if some other Dem wants to challenge that, how about this? The left cared more about illegal Americans. We found out this morning Joe Biden's plan to open our borders and sell the segments of the existing border wall on some weird Canadian Craigslist somewhere, very much known to be a bad idea. Shocker, I know. Who could have possibly seen that coming? But turns out that he was warned by a bunch of top aides that his immigration policies could actually lead to, quote, chaos, a humanitarian crisis, overwhelming processing capacities, imperil the agenda of the new administration. But they did it anyway. And get this, the reason they didn't crack down on the border was because they were more afraid of their progressive wing of their party, who live in a la-la land, than they were of actually people coming into this country illegally and, stabbing someone on a train that just happened again this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the reason they wanted all these people here illegally was to boost the census in the immediate future, and then all these lib cities are taking them in left and right, so they're boosting their population. But in the long term, they wanted to eventually give these people amnesty to become voters. So their policies are so bad that they can't get actual Americans and convince them to vote for them, so they're just going to import a bunch of people that don't know any better. Hopefully now this is over, though. Congress passing out of the Oversight Committee this new bill that would, in 2030, of course, limit non-citizens, which makes sense since they shouldn't vote in our elections anyway. And I say shouldn't because we know sometimes it happens. Why should they be counted in how we divide up the areas that do vote, though? Trump seems to be the only one who seriously wants to fix this sooner than 2030. He called for a new census back in August, saying, quote, I have instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a newly highly accurate census based on modern day facts and in figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Yes, I am done with this like tiptoeing around trying to make everybody feel good about everything. I mean, let's get America back with the representatives elected based on the actual Americans here. This should not be a controversial topic. Like, I don't want people here who want to be like the places they came from. You got some place in Vermont right now. Look at these people. They're out there hoisting up the Somali flag at a school. And then just last year, we kicked them over $100 million of our tax money in foreign aid. While the same Somalis in Minnesota stole $1 billion, and their Somali rep goes on TV and plays victim like, oh, this is so bad, woe is me.
This also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Oh, we're really upset. How do you think American taxpayers feel? Honestly, if you identify as a Somali too, and not as an American when you're here in America, I don't really care about your feelings, or for that matter, anything else about what your culture wants here. I find it so interesting that all these immigrants and all these, they're so offended by our culture, but they're just fine with taking benefits from our culture. And then after they take billions of our hard-earned money, they turn around and support the dump they came from. And then they send it back, defrauding child lunch programs and autism initiatives. Great job, guys. I mean, way to really bring in the best. And these libs are still defending this. Oh, they're an integral part of our culture. No, they are not. They don't do anything with our culture. They don't want anything to do with it. They want to import their culture and impose it on us, and then call us racist when we don't accept it. Here, let the former prime minister of Somalia literally comes here and says this out loud, and Ilhan Omar is just standing there clapping.
إلهام معها قضية مينيسوتا معها قضية غير مريكان قضية إلهام وقضية صومالية.
Wow. But apparently, according to Keith Ellison, the also Muslim AG of Minnesota, who took meetings with these fraudsters, if you are upset about your tax dollars being spent on this junk, you're a Nazi.
It reminds me of Third Reich type language. It's reminiscent of Nazis talking about poisoning the blood, calling people human garbage. It's just disgusting, and it leads invariably to tragic, horrible outcomes.
Nope. Well, these people come here, complain about not getting enough. Farmers like today, they're working their fingers to the bone to put food on the shelves so these ungrateful people can take the SNAP benefits that we give them, that the left swears they aren't getting, and go buy. It's unbelievable. Watch this.
So coming into the States, everything from the snow to, the housing, the homes, every day was something new. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just getting worse. It's like a boot camp for Maine.
Then get out of here. I mean, what are you still doing here, lady? This is the stuff I'm talking about. For 4 years, everything was put on everything like what she was just talking about, put in front of traditional American values. For the last 4 years, it was bad to be a hardworking white guy, but it was good to burn down cities. I mean, we couldn't go see grandma in the hospital, but George Floyd had 3 funerals, national protests, because, COVID apparently did not spread at those events because they were protected by social justice. That version of this country is over. Hardworking Americans are now more important than anyone else, thankfully. And I hope people are waking up to what happens when we forget that. Author of A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Scott, you handed me this book. This is fantastic. You're one of the guys, you're in the lion's den every day talking about stuff like this. And I don't know how you reason with these people, on and off air.
Yes, some are reasonable, but it's a dwindling few. I mean, there is I think a group of people on the left right now who live in such a tight ideological bubble. They live in an alternate reality. and their preferred version of America is a lot different than what President Trump's preferred version is. But I think what a majority of Americans would want, this issue with immigration you're raising, immigration plays a big part in this book because of everything Trump did in the first 100 days. But the idea that if we're going to let you come here and you don't want to assimilate into our culture, and in fact you want to import other cultures that are at odds with what we're doing here in America, that's a huge issue. People are waking up to this all over the country right now.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of your segments, mostly for comedic value. But some of these people, the title, obviously, A Revolution of Common Sense, which ain't so common, especially over there. I watch these things happen, and I'm like, do these people really believe that America is bad, or are they just playing the part?
Some do, actually. I've encountered a lot of people from the left recently and over time, and some of it I think has to do with Trump. I mean, Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. A lot of people are broken over it, and they then decide because the American people elected Donald Trump, that makes America rotten. Some people fundamentally think America's rotten at the core, and that the American experiment was inherently corrupt, or it's racist, or what have you, and therefore it needs to be ripped out root and branch. There's a lot of hostility to capitalism right now. We saw that in the New York mayoral election. There's a lot of belief that socialism is a better way. But all of these things are inherently bad for the future of the country. And the reason I put the phrase Western civilization in the title of the book is because I've come to believe we're not just arguing about politics as usual anymore. We are in a fight for the future of the West. And I don't know if the president knew he was signing up for this, but he is the leader in the fight for the people who want to preserve Western civilization.
I've been saying that we are in a cultural civil war for a decade now. But what you were talking about, TDS, failed MSNBC host Joy Reid, another American not really worth retaining at all. Listen to this.
This nation was founded by killers who slaughtered 90% of the indigenous people, leeches who glommed off of the indigenous who taught them how to survive in the wilderness and then murdered them as their things and then took all their land. And you want to talk about entitlement, they felt entitled to own other people and they didn't even want to pay taxes on it. So they decided to have a whole war with Britain.
Yeah, so we did fight the Revolutionary War of a 2.5% tax hike and a breakfast beverage, and now they confiscate 50% of my income. However, I look at someone like that, I'm like, you are a woman who's been afforded every opportunity, and she screwed that up somehow. I mean, she had a multi-million-dollar slot, screws that up, then comes here and tells us, oh, we're bad because we slaughtered 90% of Native. We bought or traded for most of the land that we live on today, and they also weren't exactly hunky-dory. They killed each other's tribes for 300 years before we got here.
When you hear Joy Reid speak about our country that way, you might say, well, that's just a failed media person. That's what the median Democrat believes. You're going to see this in the midterms. They are going to nominate people for Congress and Senate all over this country who basically would say the same thing if they stood up at a Democratic Party meeting and were asked questions about it, because that's what the Democratic base expects out of you. That's what they want you to believe. Look at the lady they nominated in the recent special election in Tennessee. I mean, she was kind of a Looney Tune.
She hated the district she lived in.
And the people that live there.
Yeah.
She looked down their noses at them. She wanted to defund the police. She thinks men can give birth. She thinks all kinds of things. But she's not on the fringes. That's the median Democrat. And that's what Trump is up against. And I write about this in the book a little bit. He's up against a pretty anti-American radical opposition. And, he takes the position on 80-20 issues. We were talking about narco-terrorists earlier. Yeah. It's really legitimately a 70-30 or an 80-20 issue. But now, because he is trying to do something about it, you got a whole political party that cares more about Maduro and narco-terrorists than they do about the people who are losing loved ones to this poison.
No, that's the other thing. In the book, it's amazing. Like, you will laugh, you will cry, you will probably throw this at the wall at some point. That's why you put it in hardback.
Yeah.
Again, shameless plug, buy this book. But, I mean, it is something that it is the revolution. Everyone's afraid, oh, you can't say revolution. You can't say civil war. It is.
I chose the title because it's what President Trump said during his inaugural address. He said we're having a revolution of common sense. When I traveled with him to Michigan on his 100th day in office as part of the book, he said to the crowd in Warren, Michigan, whether you're from the left or whether you're from the right or whatever you are, it's just common sense. And that's how he brands his broad political appeal. It's not really framing it in the old political, ideological terms. He's talking to the average American who plays by the rules, pays their taxes, wants their kids to have a good life, and he's saying, I'm trying to do the common sense thing for you, and that's why he succeeds with a huge swath of voters who don't really like politics, but they like him.
Right, but you also have, like you said, It's like that Elon graph where he's standing in the middle, the left's running away, and the paradigm just shifts, and he's standing in the same spot, and the left is calling him radical.
Yeah. You know, what they did to Elon, and there's a chapter about him in this book, you know, he was of the left. And
electric cars.
I know. This was their main guy. And all he did was commit one sin, supported a Republican for president. That's all he did. And then he decided to serve his government. And for that, they firebombed Tesla dealerships, attacked his company. You had people like Tim Walz out there praying, hoping that Tesla's stock would fail. So I guess tens of thousands of Americans would lose their jobs. All for politics. And that's all you need to know about the left right now. If Donald Trump has started the party of common sense, they're in the party of uncommon nonsense, and it causes them to do outrageous things like go after Elon, who's one of the greatest entrepreneurs in our country.
Literally is the far and beyond richest man we got. So, fantastic book. I mean, a revolution of common sense. It is definitely worth a read. Scott Jennings, we appreciate you coming in.
Carl, thanks, brother.
All right. All right, coming up, are Pennsylvania Democrats hiking up residents' water bills and sewer bills? Yeah, we're going to get to the bottom of that in just a second. It's wild. But first, just like he said, Trump is making America more affordable. Gas prices at a new huge low. Andrew Klavan joins us next.
Oh, hear the angels' voices, O night divine, O night divine.
When I first decided to invest in gold, I was a bit nervous and unsure how to start. Luckily, I found Noble Gold Investments. From the very first call, they made investing easy. No pushy sales tactics, no gimmicks, and no confusing free silver offers with hidden fees. Just honest advice tailored to my needs, giving me confidence every step of the way. If you're new to gold investing or want a partner you can trust, visit noblegoldinvestments.com.
$600 a year. If you're 50 plus, you could save up to that much by switching 2 unlimited lines from Big Wireless to Consumer Cellular. So why don't you pick up your phone while I take this hammer and right now get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
Phytonutrients are naturally occurring plant nutrients. Balance of Nature is an easy way to give your body more of a variety of phytonutrients that might be missing from your everyday diet.
Go to balanceofnature.com and get the whole health system at our best price for life.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rove Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at rove.co/sparks.
I don't know about you, but I like things the easy way. That's why the Experian app is great. It shows me credit cards based on me and my credit. Right here in the app. Oh, look at that. I just found a new cashback card. Easy. Get the app from your big financial friend, Experian.
Another huge win for Donald Trump. In a 2-1 decision, the D.C. Court of Appeals ruled that Trump was, in fact, allowed to fire 2 independent agency members that were appointed by Biden. I mean, he can put them in. He should be able to take them out. Within 2 weeks of taking office, Trump tried to remove Kathy Harris, a Dem member of the Merit Systems Protection Board, which is an oxymoron, and Gwen Wilcox. I mean, like, if bureaucrats and bureaucracy had faces, this is it right here. She was the head of the National Labor Relations Boards, which shouldn't exist anyway. Most of government shouldn't. But of course, the left all up in arms. But spoiler alert, turns out firing these people was fine all along. Now, SCOTUS heard the appeal today on this, and they pretty much seem poised to agree with Donald Trump. So, Andrew Klavan, host of the Andrew Klavan Show. Sir, like, when are we going to get to the bottom of the fact that, like, yes, he was elected as president, yes, he is in charge of the executive branch, and yes, he can fire people that he doesn't want there?
Yeah, it's very strange to me that the legislative branch should be able to create a piece of the executive branch that the executive is not allowed to control. That seems to me a violation of the separation of powers right there. I don't understand why the executive is not in charge of the executive branch. I'm not a lawyer, so maybe I'm missing some subtle, ramification of the law here, but it just seems to me wrong. And by the way, whenever they increase the power of the executive, the first thing that goes through my mind is this going to blow back on us when the Democrats come back into power, as ultimately, eventually they will? Is this going to be a bad thing for us?
Not if we get all the illegals out because we're going to overturn the census.
Well, right. I mean, that is the thing. If they get elected, they should have that power as well. I think the executive branch should be under the thrall of the executive. That's what it means.
Yeah, I mean, look at these people. It's just like, hi, hello, my name is bureaucracy. Yeah. Look, okay. All right. Speaking of Trump wins, gas prices, multi-year low. It's actually the lowest, and I had to reread this when we were going through the segment. 1,681 days. Roll this.
We hit $1.99 a gallon in 3 different states, and that's an amazing accomplishment because the gasoline prices are coming down. When gasoline comes down, everything, it's such a big category that when gasoline comes down, sort of everything sort of follows.
I just bought my 500 gallon of diesel allocation for my farm at I should have waited, man. I'm a little annoyed. No tip, no call from the man.
Yeah, well, the problem is you're probably watching the media because they don't cover these things at all. I've been driving around watching these prices drop and thinking, why isn't this news? But nothing that Trump accomplishes is news, only imaginary problems that might happen because of what Trump might do. That just dominates the news. And I think Trump has got an actual problem on his hands in that the Democrats are really expert at manipulating the media that is there for them to manipulate. And they are using that power that they have to put forward this idea of affordability. Affordability is just a code word for the fact that the Biden administration printed so much money that our money became more worthless and inflation skyrocketed. Now things are unaffordable and everybody's saying, well, Donald Trump is president, it's on his plate. And Trump gets ticked off when these things happen, when he knows he's being lied about, and he starts to spit back. But he's going to have to at least show Americans that he cares. Listen, under Trump.
Well, I mean, you put the $12 billion out for farmers today.
Yeah. Well, under Trump, wages have gone up faster than prices have gone up. So actually, prices have relatively gone down. But still, when you walk into the grocery store, you look at the eggs, and the eggs cost $12, and you're thinking, gee, this is really expensive. So I think that he should address it in a serious way, just to let people know he's thinking about it, that he's not only thinking about the Ukraine, he's not only thinking about foreign wars, he's also thinking about Americans at home. Because the one thing that politicians should never do is tell the voters that they don't know what's happening to them. People know when they're hurting. People know when they can't afford Christmas presents for their kids. So I think that it would be a good idea for Trump to let people know, listen, wages have gone up. The tariffs that were supposed to destroy our economy with inflation haven't destroyed anything with inflation. And the job market is doing well as well. And he should just talk about that more.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, too, healthcare prices. All right. So this is crazy to me. So 2012 or whatever it was, the Obamacare goes into place, worst legislation, not a single Republican votes for it. Now, nearly half of Americans say they can't afford health care, but yet still you find 91% of Democrats say that they absolutely love Obamacare. Look, Obamacare has been in place for, 12 years, and we told you this was going to happen, Andrew, and they were like, no, and they ushered it in anyway.
To try and describe the disaster that is Obamacare in a conversation this short is like writing War and Peace on a matchbook. You're absolutely right about this, Carl. We told them because it was built into the system. The system is that a young guy like you, who's hopefully going to be very healthy for a very long time, and a guy like me who may not make it through this entire conversation, who's an older guy, we should be paying the same amount. That's what Obamacare says.
And we both have to pay for maternal care, and I don't have ovaries.
Right, exactly. And ultimately, Carl is a smart guy. He's going to say, I want to do this. He's going to pull out. So now you've got all old guys paying for it. And where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the public, from the taxes. This is a bottomless well of disaster. And they're just going to throw money into it until people change it, until people get rid of it.
Hey, Andrew Klavan, I appreciate you being here. We got to go to Jasmine Crockett, who's launching the most hilarious senatorial campaign. Roll it.
Y'all look real good. But are you fired up? Are you ready to go? All right, Texas, let's get down to it. I know y'all are ready to hear some good news, and some of y'all already heard it before you even got here. Yes, it is true. I am running to become your next United States Senator from the state of Texas. I honestly can't put into words what it means to me. You see, a lot of people think that making decisions like this, you take them lightly. I'm here to tell you that I understand that there's a responsibility. I'm not reading from my script, so they're about to be confused. There's a responsibility that lies with all of us, especially in this moment. There are a lot of people that said, you gotta stay in the house. We need our voice. We need you there. And I understand. But what we need is for me to have a bigger voice. What we need is not only a voice, but we need to make sure that we are going to stop all the hell that is raining down on all of our people. So over the last couple of months, I've been thinking about our future. Where do we go from here? And obviously, I've been thinking about Texas. I thought about my classmates from law school. One is standing right up front, Mr. Anthony Farmer. I thought about the big dreams we all had, fighting for justice in the courtroom, starting our own businesses, buying a home, starting families. If you think about it, our dreams were the American dream. Opportunities for those who work hard, home ownership, jobs, entrepreneurship, and security. And that time, we were headed into the Great Recession. I took a job in East Texas for a pretty well-known family-owned law firm. I began doing class action defense work. And honestly,
Okay, I really don't care much about her really affluent upbringing that has now resorted in her being one of the most classless people in Congress. But we got more of that in our culture class coming up next. We'll see you there.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weeknight on Newsmax.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time. So why do so many dog foods contain awful things a human would never eat? To save his pets, world-famous veterinarian Dr. Marty knew he had to change what was in their bowl.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, my breakthrough formula that's changed everything about dog food.
Nature's Blend contains nothing but all-natural ingredients, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching and paw licking, even moving around better. And that's because Nature's Blend is freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, we gently preserve them, and you'll see the difference in your dog.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues. He's healthier, he looks better.
Dr. Marty has thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV. That's drmartypets.com/TV.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
Hurry in for huge savings going on now at Motorhome Specialist, now with 2 locations. Shop and save on over 1,000 motorhomes, starting at $69,995, only at Motorhome Specialist, the #1 motorhome dealer in the world.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
We all hate her so much, but the woman who fled the country to stay away from Donald Trump and U.S. politics just did a sit-down interview with the Washington Post about how she fled the U.S., and then talking about Donald Trump and U.S. politics. I know we hate talking about Rosie O'Donnell. I don't really, but it's so rich. It's such a great story. The entire takeaway from this article is that Rosie has the categorical, poster child of Trump derangement syndrome, level 10. Seek help, lady. I mean, that is actually what she did. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, O'Donnell promised her therapist that she would not post anything about Trump for 2 days. It lasted a few hours. And here was her message to 1.2 million followers that day.
I have this new therapist I'm going to that talks about trauma healing. You should try to not post about him for 2 days. So I didn't post on here, but I did, if I like something, hit like or hit add to story, which doesn't feel like it's posting to me.
She loves to hate him. I mean, she failed the assignment in a few hours, but to the point where her therapist told her to detach and disconnect. Rosie then vowed not to do anything for 3 days, and then the Washington Post ends with, somehow, even she knew she wouldn't be able to keep that latest promise. Even the Washington Post is admitting your TDS is insane. Look, hey, Trump, making therapist bank accounts great again, even in other countries. Whitley Yates, a political analyst and CEO of Niche Agency, and Alexis Wilkins, political commentator and spokesman for American Border Story. Okay, Alexis, I look at this and I'm like, just turn it off.
One would think, right? That would be the logical solution. But Rosie O'Donnell has found more media attention in her hatred for President Trump than she has in a very long time. So, if she shuts her mouth about her TDS syndrome, which I understand why they call it that, because if she has to visit a therapist, that kind of checks out. She knows that she's going to get hits from it. That's the way that Washington Post contacts her. So it's going to keep going strong.
Yeah, I mean, and I know people hate it, but I just have to bring it up because it actually genuinely does make me laugh. Whitley, Jasmine Crockett's seat eliminated after the Texas Republicans redistricting map. We just took her announcement live about her running for Senate. You really think that this is somehow some sort of winnable seat for her? I mean, Beto O'Rourke was arguably a much better candidate and lost by a lot.
I don't think that Jasmine is actually running to win. I think she's auditioning for a bigger stage. She doesn't have to give up her current seat. She won't be losing her current position in Congress until January 2027. So she's able to run, lose, and still be a pain in the you-know-what. And so I think that what she's attempting to do is utilize this Senate run to increase her platform, increase her following, and see if Texans want to hear more of her and turn up that Crockett volume.
I spend a lot of time in Texas. I don't think there's any patience for her outside of her little bubble in the city right there. All right, so Pamela Smith, the first D.C. black female DEI police chief, she said this, roll it.
Can you tell us what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So
This is a woman who didn't understand what a chain of command is, Alexis. And now she's resigned among this whole thing where they were manipulating crime data. But this was her big plans for retirement. Roll this.
the one thing I'd like to be able to do is to go back home to my house, sit on the deck and drink lemonade. It's going to be a little too cold to do that right now, but I have a nice outside heater that I can kind of set up and just really to relax my mind.
Seems like not really the person I'd want as a police chief in the first place.
No, I mean, I think that come spring, it sounds like she'll have plenty of time to drink lemonade on her porch like she wants, considering she doesn't know what a chain of command is. And last time I checked, if you're in law enforcement in any way, shape, or form, that's kind of something that you need to have awareness of. It just goes to show that hiring based on merit and hiring based on nothing else but merit is really what's important here, because someone like that is directly responsible for the crime rate that we had seen in Washington, D.C., that President Trump has recently cleaned up, and across the nation. You know, this isn't just unique to this story. Of course, this is astounding, and that quote is horrific coming from a law enforcement officer, but it really just goes to show that this is what President Trump is working to replace across the nation.
And hopefully she just doesn't bother us anymore. All right, over in the UK, though, Whitley, they threw somebody in jail for 6 months for an offensive social media post that caused anxiety. Listen to this.
If during that 18-month period you commit any further offence, whether or not of the same type, you will be brought back before the court, and it is likely that you will be required to serve some or all of that total 6-month period. For the next 12 months, you will be subject to a rehabilitation activity requirement of up to 20 days, and you are required to complete 200 hours of unpaid work in the community.
That is why I threw a bunch of tea in the harbor.
You know, I am surprised that Liverpool is this ludicrous. They have such a great football club. But the truth of the matter is you're not catching criminals. There are people perpetrating crimes on the street in Liverpool that you are not bringing to justice. But someone that hurts your feelings on social media has to spend jail time. The idea that this is the new normal is asinine. And the fact that they are perpetuating this while wearing that wig also makes the story a little bit crazier.
It's like a Babylon Bee headline. Whitley Yates, Alexis Wilkins, we appreciate it very much. All right.
Thank you.
Don't give up your guns, folks. You'll end up in jail for tweeting things. Coming up, another stabbing on light rail in Charlotte, North Carolina by an illegal who had been deported multiple times under Trump's first term, by the way, but still wound up back here. I wonder how that happened. We got those deets next.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Lee, and we live in North Pole, Alaska.
I was noticing my hearing was not so good, so I got hearing aids. My vision was not as good as it used to be. Got a change in prescription, but I was missing something for my brain. I saw a Prevagen commercial, and I thought that makes sense.
I observed the changes in Steve. I thought I should try that too.
After taking Prevagen, I just didn't have to work so hard.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
Your parents have given you some amazing gifts, but what about the inherited ones? Celebrate them with Ancestry DNA, the simple test that shows your deep family roots from your mom's side and your dad's side, with some serious detail. Trace the journeys and history that shaped who you are today, and see the traits they passed down. Your connections to the past are all waiting. See just how gifted you are for only $29.
Radical jihadists are not done. Iran promises death to America. They've built sleeper terror cells in the U.S. They support terror groups out to destroy Israel, including Hamas, whose founding charter calls for Islam to dominate the world.
The young people have been educated to believe that the most sacred thing they do is stab a Christian in the heart.
The only democracy in the Middle East that supports religious freedom is Israel. Standing for freedom, not terror.
Tired of dealing with those old clogged gutters in the wintertime? It's not too late to call LeafGuard, the gutter that never clogs, guaranteed. LeafGuard has earned the Good Housekeeping seal 20 years in a row, and it comes with a lifetime transferable warranty. And remember, in most cases, we can bring our factory on wheels right to your home and install LeafGuard in less than a day. Call during this program and take advantage of our double savings sale. We're going to double your savings to 20% off a complete LeafGuard system, double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase, and double your free gift. Receive a $100 gift card with your in-home estimate. And when you get LeafGuard, you'll have more time to go on vacation. Than the first 50 homeowners who call will receive a vacation voucher with LeafGuard purchase, used for a condo, hotel stay, or a cruise. Call 1-800-541-1274. That's 1-800-541-1274.
The difference for me with Leaf Guard is the gigantic icicles that used to hang on every corner of my home to this winter where there were none.
If you're tired of climbing a ladder, putting your hands in that icy cold water to clean out the gutters, you need Leaf Guard. Get it today, protect it for life. Don't worry about those old gutters hanging off, popping off your home this winter. With Leaf Guard, we attach it to the fascia with screws, not nails. It's not coming down. Call during this program and take advantage of our double savings sale. We're going to double your savings to 20% off a complete Leaf Guard system. Double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase, and double your free gift. Receive a $100 gift card with your in-home estimate. And the first 50 homeowners who call will receive a vacation voucher with Leaf Guard purchase. Call 1-800-541-1274. That's 1-800-541-1274.
I mean, it happens again. I mentioned this earlier. Another stabbing out of Charlotte. All right, on the same light rail where the Ukrainian refugee, Aaron Zukitska, or whatever her name was, killed back in August by another guy. This time, 33-year-old Oscar Solazano Garcia, sounds like a nice homegrown American, stabbed a man on the light rail just before 5 p.m. on Friday. Now, he was allegedly drinking alcohol on the train and began yelling. Passengers told him to stop yelling, and he pulled out an extremely large fixed blade knife. Why did he have that? Well, the suspect was arrested and charged with attempted first-degree murder, assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injury, breaking and entering a motor vehicle, carrying a concealed weapon, intoxicated and disruptive. But here's the best part. According to DHS, he was an illegal from Honduras with a lengthy criminal history, including prior arrest for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, destroying evidence, resisting arrest, using a false ID. You know, all the neighborly stuff that you want from somebody living in your town. And he was issued a final order of removal by an immigration judge back in 2018, removed by the Trump administration on March 9th, 2018, and he was stopped crossing the border again in 2021, was removed. He entered the country illegally a third time at an unknown date, and here he is. So, I mean, whatever. Michael Savage, host of the Savage Nation, sir. Ridiculous.
No, I have a solution. You know, it is a terrible story, but there's a solution to every problem, and I have one that I'm sure you'll appreciate. You buy him a wig, you send him to England, where Starmer will make him a judge in Liverpool, and bingo, we have a solution to the problem.
It really is actually crazy that we're sitting here. But, you know, President Trump addressed this stabbing over the weekend, saying another stabbing by an illegal migrant in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's going on in Charlotte? Democrats are destroying it like everything else, piece by piece. And they do. Everything Democrats touch. You live in California. They just destroy everything.
I've been fighting it for like 30 years. Years ago, in 1977, I wrote a little booklet called The Death of the White Male. I know I can't even mention it, but the greatest minority on the planet is actually are people descended from the Europeans. We're one of the smallest minorities.
Like 8% of the planet.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, well, of course, you get it. And yet, if you look at how the so-called minorities who are revered in this country treat each other and people who are not like them in their own country, you'll see real racism. Mm-hmm. And I can give you many examples. I don't mean to pick on any particular one, but I will, because it's easy. It pops right out of that booklet. In Japan, the Ainu people in northern Japan are Caucasian in looks, right? Mm-hmm. They're discriminated against. They're treated like garbage by the Japanese because they don't look like Japanese people. They look like white people. Now, I like the Japanese people. I've studied the Japanese culture. I think Japan is one of the greatest countries on the earth, but that's irrelevant. What's relevant is that racial differences and racism per se is not unique to any country. It's almost endemic in every country on the planet, by the way.
But the other thing, and this is like CNN, they always love calling some of these people who are black or Hispanic or whatever, they call them white. All right, like the J6 pipe bomber.
Oh.
They went off. They were like, hey, this guy's white. No, he's not.
But why is Jake Tapper still on the air? How does he get on with a straight face? Literally the day after he's found to have called the black pipe bomber white. And the whole world is looking at Jake Tapper. And he gets up with a straight face like nothing happened. Are these people on medication? I'd like to know what they take. Do they take some secret supplement that allows them to get up with a straight face while the whole world is laughing at them? I want to get that particular pill.
Not the first time. Roll this. They did this shooting over the last summer at Blackstone. Watch it.
Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs.
On the phone on the scene, showing you here, John's reporting that they do know what he looks like, male, possibly white, mustache, sunglasses, in that building, isolated to, they believe, to various locations, including upper floors.
I got about 20 seconds for you, sir, on this one. Also white, not white.
Well, you only can laugh at it. You know why I'm laughing? Because it's the only thing left to do is laugh at them. They're not going to take us seriously. You have to mock them in the public arena until finally they understand that we don't buy their act anymore. It's that simple, Carl. I mean, I'm going to take these people seriously? No. A guy like Jake Tapper, who has nothing but race between his eyes? Years ago, 1977, I wrote The Death of the White Male, not for sale, not selling a pamphlet. But believe me, I saw it coming, Carl.
It's
and
worth
I've
it.
been trying to fight this madness. It's a crazy thing.
I got to leave it right there. We're out of time. Michael Savage, but always a pleasure, my man.
Good thing we had a laugh together.
We did. All right, be sure to check out Savage Nation right here on Newsmax, Sundays, 8 p.m. Coming up also, absurd water bill increases in Pennsylvania. One state rep putting a kibosh on it, or at least trying. Next.
$600 a year. If you're 50 plus, you could save up to that much by switching 2 unlimited lines from Big Wireless to Consumer Cellular. And we've got the same reliable coverage. So why don't you pick up your phone while I take this hammer and... I can't feel my feet. If you're over 50, get 2 unlimited lines for $30 each. And right now, get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you, waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist-recommended Dermen Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermen Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
Meet Andrew from the Zebra. Andrew lives and breathes insurance. Andrew stays up all night watching the Zebra find people's savings. You might think nobody could love insurance as much as Andrew, but at the Zebra, everybody's really into savings. The Zebra monitors your insurance and informs you of savings the moment we find it, so you never have to second-guess your policy or your price. Nobody does insurance like the Zebra. Find out how much you can save today.
I gotta tell you, every day I am a normal guy bothered by the same things as everyone else. In this case, and always, government just unilaterally doing whatever they want, raising fees on everyday Americans. So let me tell you about what's happening in Pennsylvania at the hand of, you guessed it, Democrats. In Pennsylvania, instead of a flat fee like it used to be for sewer, all water used is now, that goes through your homes is being billed as if it's being treated through the sewer system and wastewater. So if you water your lawn, They now bill you for that water that comes through your meter as if it was going into the public sewer system and they had to treat it. This change just happened overnight, by the way. Now, some Pennsylvania residents, their bills like that, 600% increase overnight. One family's bill went from $75 a month to $344 a month. Roll this.
Brett and Megan Hamilton are frustrated over what they say is a skyrocketing increase on their sewer bill.
They're charging us for a service that they're not doing.
The West Bradford Township couple said in the summer of 2024 an approved rate hike for community utilities of Pennsylvania by the Pennsylvania Utility Commission changed their monthly sewer billing from a $74 flat rate to a metered rate.
If you turn a hose on and leave it in the front yard for 20 minutes to water the trees, the lawn, whatever it might be, that water never reaches the wastewater system.
Look, we're not letting this slide. This is absolutely absurd. And who's to say this wouldn't come to, I don't know, your town next? This is what happens when big government, especially Democrat-run places, they nickel and dime and they do whatever they want. They raise fees, and then they're like, oh, we're super surprised when people get upset about it. Pennsylvania State Rep Brenda Pugh, who is against this case, been very vocal on it. All right, ma'am, this is so crazy to me that you can just open your bill one day without changing a thing you're doing and have a 600% increase?
It's outrageous. And that's the problem, I think, with these big companies coming in and buying our smaller companies and our authorities and taking over. So they've got control of the water, the storm water, and our sewer systems. So they're able to make the changes that they do. And right now, we have a major purchase that's taking place here between American Water and Essential Utilities, which makes me suspect, why all of a sudden do we have a rate increase coming just in the American Water with the PUC?
Right, but could somebody theoretically, I mean, a lot of these places are on very small plots. Like, you don't have a choice. Like, you have to use water. You have to use sewer. You can't get a well. You can't put in a septic because of local zoning laws. So you have no choice. So literally, you have to pay this now.
You're absolutely forced to pay it, especially if you want clean water to drink. So because this has come about, I'm actually got legislation that I've been working on, and I'm pushing it forward right now to do forensic audits biannually that these companies have to present to the PUC, separated from even the PUC, so that we are able to ensure that the public isn't paying too much, because we're seeing profit margins go through the roof right now.
Oh, yeah, and when their profit margins are going through the roof and the average people are struggling to, make ends meet on here. You made a statement, thankfully, obviously, the public utility company that is doing this, I forget their name, but they are the Public Utility Commission. They're investigating these people now to make sure that this is happening. But the problem is this public utility company has said, hey, we were advised to do this by some consultant. So everybody's pointing the finger at each other. Who exactly is at fault here?
So, I mean, when it comes right down to it, they're requesting the increase, which they've requested increases, I believe, every year for the last 5 years, both companies. So they go in, my guess is the PUC will come back with a lower rate, but it's still going to be a rate increase.
Yeah, and it's not like people are flushing more poop. It's just they just want more money.
That's correct.
Well, State Rep Brenda Pugh, we really appreciate it. Keep up this fight. Keep us posted on, because I want to stick it to these people.
I will. You've got it.
All right. Before we go,
Thank you.
Officials at the Department of Health and Human Services quietly dropping a reality check on one Biden official, and Dems are losing their mind. It's hilarious. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
My name is Stephen Kubrick. I wrestle as Steve Macklin in TNA. Americans shouldn't stand for their heroes sleeping on the streets. Across this great country, there are thousands of veterans with no place to call home. They deserve better. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation is committed to eradicating veteran homelessness by providing housing and critical services. So please help by donating $11 a month at t2t.org. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
They killed her brother. They shot her dog. And they took her hostage for 400 days and terrifying nights. They raped her. They put guns to her head. They starved her. These are the stories of Israeli women attacked by Hamas. If you are supporting Hamas and radicalized Palestinians, this is what you are supporting. Choose freedom, not terror.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
Overnight crews at HHS were busy while the government was shut down, updating the nameplate of the former Assistant Secretary of Health, Rachel Levine, to his real biological name, Richard Levine, because, it's a dude, and the left is having a meltdown.
Do you know how much insecurity these Trump officials must have about their own masculinity, their own identity, to have to take the time to remove Rachel Levine's name from her HHS official portrait?
Cry more, Lives. Like it's a man pretending to be a woman. Let's not talk about insecurity. Never mind the fact that he was the health director in Pennsylvania while simultaneously putting COVID positive patients into that place. He pulled his own parents out. Schmidt, these people.
There was no competent reason to give Rachel Levine that position. We know that. We know exactly why Rachel Levine got that position.
But he was diverse.
That's right. And that's all that mattered. Carl, good to see you. Thanks so much.